Hello and welcome. This is Catholic Focus. My name is Kudamatambo. Over the past few weeks, we've seen O and A level results posted from schools and individual candidates, both examined by Cambridge and ZimSec, and that was quite a show of great differences. Some top private schools, including Catholic ones, had a stream of A's in Cambridge, yet the overall percentage pass rate for ZimSec O-level results were just below 30%, and some schools, including Catholic ones, had the whole school's results withdrawn for reasons we don't know yet. So today we are going to have a quick look at the education system in Zimbabwe and also the role and position of Catholic education and also Jesuit education. And for that, we have Fr Joe Arimoso, the coordinator of Jesuit schools in Africa and Madagascar, and the Jesuit delegate for education in the Jesuit province of Southern Africa. And he is also the rector of St. George's College in Zimbabwe. Fr Joe, welcome.
Thank you so much.
On this particular show, we talk about issues that affect you, issues that affect the society, including education from a Catholic perspective and also within the Catholic Church. So Fr Joe, let's dive right in. What is your assessment of the education system in Zimbabwe? Are we heading in the right direction?
Yes and no. Because when you look at the education system in Zimbabwe, we've got to look at it in two ways. You've got private schools, and then you've got government-funded schools, public schools. So what is happening within what we call ATS, the private schools, is different from what is happening in the other schools like government schools. Private schools are doing well. They are improving a lot, trying to catch up with 21st century teaching and learning, education that is based on skills and all these things. But the other side of the bulk of the population of our children are in public schools and mission schools and all that are not doing so well. Without even using a measure or comparison, we simply ask a question and say, our public schools and mission schools and all compliance with 21st century teaching and learning, or they're still stuck with the old model of just learning or cramming to get results.
And what do you think are the most critical challenges? Is it just the economy? Is it economy at all?
The challenges are everywhere, okay? In a simplistic way, we can talk about the infrastructure for starters. Even our mission schools that were doing well 50 years ago, the infrastructure is now dilapidated, okay? Then we go to teachers. We've got teachers' colleges training the would-be teachers in an old way, in an archaic way. These teachers today in these teachers' colleges places should be teaching the teachers, the new generation of teachers, something that has to go in line with 21st century, but they're not. So they're coming to schools, and that's why a lot of teachers complained when color was introduced, that is too much work, because they themselves are not skilled. So you can implement new ideas in schools, but your teacher, if there's no upskilling, then everything doesn't work. So in that case, we found ourselves in a difficult situation where it's not just funding, because the government is barely funding schools, infrastructure, teachers upskilling is an issue that has to be addressed, and also, especially in public schools, the ratio, teacher-pupil ratio, is crazy. One teacher can be managing 70 students. So how do these children actually learn in a crowded place like that?
Okay, what is the ideal ratio, and what's the rationale behind the rationale of teacher to student ratio?
Yeah, the normal teacher-pupil ratio would be 25, if some can afford 25. And with 25, you are sure that the teacher will be able to track every student, progress and supporting them. But once you have 1 to 40, 1 to 50, a few clever kids can make it, but the bulk of the children will suffer a lot without getting enough attention and all that. Not that because they're not intelligent, maybe some are slow, but in a large class like that. In Zimbabwe, the ministry talks about the minimum is 45 or 40, But because of the demands for schools, we have a shortage of schools in Zimbabwe. That's not a secret. So we're ending up with all these crazy teacher-pupil ratios.
Let's go back to examining bodies. That's one way of measuring the education system, is also to look at the results, the performances of results. The 2022 ZIMSEC O-level results had just about 29% pass rate. And that's about maybe 50-something thousand candidates. What is your assessment of that? What does that say about our education system in Zimbabwe?
Yeah. So the biggest tragedy is in this country, in Zimbabwe, is that we've come to accept that it's okay that only 30% students pass and 70% fail.
Which is not.
Yeah, so we haven't addressed that issue. Why do you accept that 30%? Sometimes when we increase to 34%, you say, oh, the better result increased. But we still have a headache with 66% of the students. Every year, where are those children going to? You know? And also, the education system is still stuck in the past in terms of, it's based on the IQ orientation. We've gone beyond IQ, you know? Nowadays, we're talking about skills, we're talking about emotional intelligence, social intelligence. We have accepted that children are talented in different ways. But this educational system is not addressing that. It is still trying to address students who get white-collar jobs. And that's why it's still a pyramid going up. And you can see even within that pyramid, there are what I would call negative checks and balances, in the sense that when you want to go to university, you can't go there without maths. But if I'm an artist, I am an artist myself. Why do I need maths? Okay,
we'll talk about you being an artist on another program.
Yes. Yeah. So you can see that we've not reviewed the education system in Zimbabwe. We had a big opportunity way back in 1999, where the Nziramasanga Commission produced a report that was really ahead of their time. We missed the chance there to implement it, because they were actually dealing with issues that now are looking at.
Speaking about skills, the government said they are introducing technical high schools to help students acquire innovative and industrial skills. And if I can quote the Permanent Secretary of Education Ministry, Tumisang Tabela, said, the technical high schools will endeavor to help pupils acquire innovative industrial skills that will either fit them well into industry or enable them to be job creators as opposed to be job seekers. I mean, how do you react to this? Is this what our education system needs?
Yeah, my first reaction to that is that I'm not wowed, because it's nothing new. It's nothing new. We tried that way back in the 80s, you know, with vocational training centers. And yet, there was this perception that if you go and do vocational training center, if you go there, you're a little bit daft, you're not clever. But today we're talking about multiple intelligences. You know, those places served for those other children who are talented in different ways. So they're only reintroducing something that we tried and didn't work because of a variety of reasons. But yes, the idea is great, it's acceptable. We need to do that. But how do we actually infuse that with the proper curriculum, not having separate technical high schools? But how do we actually make sure that within our schools there, all children who are differently talented are taken care of? That's our challenge. That's our challenge. Was focusing on a small group of students and ignoring the rest.
Okay, let's come to Catholic schools and Catholic education. How are Catholic schools and Catholic education and Jesuit education in particular responding to the challenges that we're facing in the national education system?
Yeah, Catholic schools are trying their best. Of course, Catholic schools, we carry a brand. A lot of parents would like to bring their children to a Catholic school because the old perception that there's discipline there, they'll pass, and all these things. We've tried to maintain that as Catholic schools. But we also have a lot of areas where we need to improve, especially like aligning our schools with the 21st century teaching and learning. In Zimbabwe, of course, when we get the top 10 schools that are with pass rates, always Catholic schools feature there. But are we educating in the line of 21st century Catholics? We have a challenge as well. But if you compare Catholic schools and say government schools, we can rejoice and say we're doing well, but not really.
Maybe something like vainglory.
Yeah, something like that. We need to up our game. Most of our Catholic schools are old, so the infrastructure needs attention. And most of our schools still focus on exams. And obsession.
You mentioned 21st century teaching or 21st century learning. I mean, can you give us an example? What does that mean? Just break it down. What does that mean to an ordinary person or to ordinary teacher?
Yeah. So with the 21st century teaching, we're looking at the world and its needs. So we're saying that children, instead of just cramming subjects, they should be able to have skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, collaborative learning, because that's what's needed in the world. So if those aspects are not built into the curriculum, then we're missing out something. That children just learn maths, that's it, English or sciences as it is, but they don't have the skills for problem solving, collaborative learning. So it touches on many things. It has to come down from infrastructure. You've got to have the right teacher. You've got to have the right teacher who is also motivated. So we are doing well, but not doing well at the same time.
And in terms of the skills, there's been a talk and assessment that has been done to say some of these students who are getting, straight A's, 20 points, 11, 15, 20 A's on O level are lacking this skill, to socialize, to get into the industry and all that. Speaking about Jesuit education, how do you respond to that? How are you dealing with that problem, if it's a problem at all?
Yes. So we have been doing a number of things, say projects. Only last week or so, we went to Siyavonga with all the headmasters from our schools. And we were there having a workshop on values-based education, where our education is transform society and therefore is value-based. So focus on values in our schools. And those values should be able also to infuse the 21st century skills. So you've got values-based and skills-based built into our curriculum to make sure that we produce youngsters who are ready for the world, youngsters who can go to universities and they're comfortable. Because a lot of the youngsters who are going to university from Zimbabwe, I don't have clear statistics about that, that in the first year they do well, went into university, but second year they struggle because now it's learner-centered, because they don't have it in our schools, that the responsibility for learning lies on the student himself. So there, most of our students, they go to South Africa, they begin to struggle.
So are we producing students for a different market than Zimbabwe?
Not really. The curriculum hasn't changed to fit in all that. It's just people looking for opportunities. And our educational system is still trusted. Our children are going to the US, our children are making to Australia and all these things. But when they get there, their curriculum there is actually lined up with 21st century, especially universities. You've got to know how to work around IT, you've got to know how to do so many things. So that is missing in our high schools. We need to have that.
Okay. Could that be the reason why most private schools are now writing Cambridge instead of ZimSec, or maybe writing Cambridge and ZimSec?
ZimSec has lost credibility. In terms of, first of all, you've heard about papers leaking and all these things. They've lost credibility, So parents are preferring their children to write Cambridge so that they have a better chance to go outside the world, outside the country to go to university. And that's why people are opting now for Cambridge rather than ZimSec.
Okay. I know you don't speak for all Catholic education commissions. Some are diocesan, some are different dioceses. But do you think you have answered this in part of the questions, but do you think we should be proud about our Catholic schools now?
Yes, we should be, because we are the people who are carrying the brand forward. We have the schools already, we have a brand, we have a track record, but there's more to be done. We should be proud because we've been committed to education for many years, and we've educated all sorts of people, politicians, business people, all these people. But I think what we need right now is to review and find ourselves anew, and to have new energy to move forward. But that all boils down to funding and human resources. So while we are proud, we acknowledge that we still have a challenge.
In January, Pope Francis' prayer intention was for Catholic educators. I think this includes the teachers, those who are working in schools in terms of educationists, and people like yourselves. What message do we have for educators working in Catholic schools and Jesuit schools?
So I always say that to be an educator, one has to be optimistic. So one has to find positive energy. So, and I always believe that to be a teacher is a vocation. You actually love the job from your heart, and that's why you teach. And we expect to have teachers like that in our schools. For that, you don't teach because of salary or anything. You teach because it's a vocation to transform society. But of course, that's being hampered by the remuneration, where teachers are not well paid. But all I can say is that we expect teachers in our Catholic schools to have a positive attitude, because we take teaching as a vocation.
And to learners in Jesuit schools, in Catholic schools?
Yeah, first of all, the learners in Jesuit schools, first of all, they should understand that they're privileged, at least to be part of this huge network of Jesuit schools around the world. Coming to a Jesuit school in Zimbabwe means that you've joined a bigger family that has, hundreds of institutions, educational institutions in the world. So they should feel privileged, but at the same time, they need to contribute to the school. They should benefit from the school, but the school should benefit from them as well. So it's both ways. So we need youngsters who are talented, who are switched on, who know what they're doing, to promote this brand, so that we can do that, we can achieve the reason why we started education is to transform society in a positive way.
Father Joe, thank you very much. But in conclusion, what do you think we can learn from, like you've mentioned, from other Jesuit schools, the best practices in this wider network? What is it that we can learn and that can help the education system in Zimbabwe?
There's a lot we can learn, but the one thing that we need to learn is that teachers need to be upskilled. It's very critical. We can have all the good ideas to implement in the school, but if your teachers are not, they still have basic skills, it will be very difficult. So I think that's an area where we should learn. Of course, infrastructure calls for funding and many other things. But right now, we've got to go through a revolution, a new revolution for Catholic education, especially in Zimbabwe. And if we're not careful, in the next 20 years, we'll be overtaken by many little schools coming up who are more courageous and adventurous with their curriculum. We used to have just two groups 20 years ago, private schools and public schools and all. But in between there, you've got these little academies coming up. They don't do sports or anything, they just go to school. But some of them are giving very good education that if Catholics are not careful to review themselves, to find new life, they'll be overtaken.
Father Joe, thank you very much for being on our show, Catholic Focus. And you, our viewers, thank you very much for watching. Please continue to like and subscribe our channels and share this program and many other programs with your family and friends and even your children's teachers. For now, it's bye.